On June 20th, 2001, a tragedy unfolded in Houston, Texas, that would forever alter the nation's perception of mental health and motherhood. Andrea Yates, a mother of 5, committed an act so horrific that it left the country in shock and disbelief. Who was Andrea Yates? A once loving and devoted mother, her life took a devastating turn as she struggled with severe postpartum psychosis. On that fateful summer morning, she made a decision that would not only end the lives of her 5 young children, but also spark a national conversation about mental illness, legal responsibility, and societal failure. As we journey through this harrowing case, we will uncover the psychological torment that plagued Andrea, the legal battles that ensued, and the divided public opinion that followed. This is not just a story of a mother's tragic actions, but a complex narrative that challenges our understanding of mental health and justice. Stay with us as we delve into the chilling details and profound questions raised by the Andrea Yates case. This is a story that will leave you questioning the very fabric of our societal safety nets and the true meaning of justice. June 20th, 2001, dawned like any other summer morning in Houston, Texas. The Yates family home was filled with the usual hustle and bustle of 5 young children. Little did anyone know, the day would soon plunge into unimaginable darkness. Andrea Yates, consumed by her postpartum psychosis, awoke with a chilling resolve. She led her children, one by one, to the bathroom. The first to go was Paul, aged 3. Next was Luke, just 2 years old, followed by John, at 5. 4-month-old Mary was cradled in her mother's arms as she drew her last breath. Finally, the oldest, 7-year-old Noah, realized what was happening. He ran but couldn't escape his mother's grip. The house fell eerily silent. Andrea then dialed 911, her voice composed yet haunting. She simply stated, "I just killed my children." The operator, stunned, struggled to grasp the gravity of her words. Police arrived promptly, finding a scene that would forever be etched into their memories. The immediate aftermath was a whirlwind of flashing lights, hushed whispers, and the overwhelming sorrow that permeated the air. Neighbors watched in disbelief, their hearts breaking for the innocent lives lost, and the woman who had committed such an unthinkable act. This tragic morning left an indelible mark on the community and set the stage for a trial that would challenge our understanding of mental illness and moral culpability. It begged the question, how could a mother do this to her children? And more importantly, how could society have prevented it? Andrea Yates' story is a sobering reminder of the devastating impact of untreated mental illness. As we delve deeper into this case, we must ask ourselves, what can be done to ensure no family ever faces such horror again? To truly grasp the tragedy of the Yates family, we must explore the turbulent mind of Andrea Yates. Her battle with severe postpartum depression and psychosis was long and arduous, marked by a series of harrowing episodes and desperate cries for help that went unheard or misunderstood. Andrea's mental health issues began after the birth of her first child. She experienced overwhelming feelings of sadness, anxiety, and isolation. As she continued to have more children, her condition worsened. By the time Mary, her 5th child, was born, Andrea was deeply entrenched in the throes of postpartum psychosis. Medical records reveal a grim pattern. Andrea had been hospitalized multiple times for her mental health, with doctors prescribing various medications to stabilize her condition. Yet these treatments were inconsistent, often interrupted by a lack of understanding or the stigma surrounding mental illness. Warnings from her physicians were clear. Andrea was at high risk of harming herself or others if left untreated. Despite these dire warnings, Andrea's mental health struggles were not fully acknowledged or addressed by those around her. The pressures of raising 5 young children, coupled with a strict religious environment, compounded her sense of isolation and despair. The Yates family, deeply devout, adhered to a fundamentalist Christian doctrine that emphasized traditional roles and the importance of motherhood. inadvertently placing immense pressure on Andrea. Rusty Yates, Andrea's husband, worked long hours, leaving Andrea alone with the children for extended periods. While Rusty was supportive, he often underestimated the severity of her condition. Andrea's cries for help were sometimes dismissed as mere baby blues, a dangerous underestimation of her true mental state. Religious influences also played a significant role in Andrea's deteriorating mental health. The couple followed the teachings of Michael Warrenecki, a traveling preacher whose apocalyptic and extreme views on sin and salvation exacerbated Andrea's fragile psyche. She became consumed by the belief that she was a bad mother and that her children were destined for eternal damnation unless she saved them through death. The tragedy of June 20, 2001 was not a spontaneous act of violence, but the culmination of years of untreated mental illness, societal pressures, and religious fervor. Andrea Yates' story forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about mental health care, the stigmatization of mental illness, and the dire consequences of ignoring the warning signs. As we reflect on this case, it is imperative to ask ourselves, how can we better support those struggling with mental illness? How can we ensure that no one else falls through the cracks? The answers to these questions are crucial if we are to prevent such devastating tragedies in the future. The morning of June 20th, 2001, began like any other for the Yates family, but by mid-morning, the household was engulfed in a chilling silence. Andrea Yates had done the unthinkable. She had drowned her 5 children in the family bathtub. When the police arrived at the Yates home, they found Andrea in a state of eerie calm. She had called 911 herself, requesting the presence of officers at her house. There was no panic in her voice, no sign of the horror that had just unfolded. During the police interrogation, Andrea's demeanor remained unsettlingly composed. She recounted the events with a detached clarity, describing how she had methodically drowned each of her children. Her words were chilling, devoid of the emotional turmoil one would expect from a mother who had just committed such an atrocity. "I killed my children," she said plainly, her voice steady. "They were not righteous. They were going to perish." Her confession was a stark contrast to the gruesome reality of her actions, highlighting a profound disconnect between her mental state and the severity of her crimes. Detectives were struck by her calmness, noting that she spoke as if she were discussing an everyday task. This dissonance raised immediate questions about her sanity. How could a mother, seemingly so composed, commit such a heinous act? Was this the manifestation of a deeply disturbed mind? Or was there something more sinister at play? As the interrogation continued, Andrea revealed the depth of her delusions. She believed that by killing her children, she was saving them from eternal damnation. Her actions, she explained, were driven by a desperate need to protect her children from a fate she believed was far worse than death. The police and medical professionals who later examined Andrea were faced with a complex and troubling case. Her confession, while clear and detailed, was also a testament to her profound psychological torment. The line between sanity and madness blurred, leaving many to question whether Andrea Yates was truly responsible for her actions, or if she was a victim of her own mind. Andrea's case forces us to confront the harrowing reality of untreated mental illness and its potential to drive individuals to unimaginable acts. It also raises important questions about the legal and moral implications of her actions. Was Andrea Yates a cold-blooded murderer, or was she a mother lost in the depths of psychosis, crying out for help in the only way she knew? As we continue to explore this tragic case, we must grapple with these difficult questions and consider the broader implications for mental health care and the justice system. How do we balance accountability with compassion? And how can we prevent such tragedies from occurring in the future? As the case of Andrea Yates moved to the courtroom, the world watched with bated breath. The trial was set to determine whether Andrea was a cold-blooded murderer or a mother lost in the depths of severe mental illness. The courtroom was a battleground of emotions and legal arguments, each side presenting a narrative that would either condemn or exonerate her. The prosecution painted a picture of a woman who, despite her mental struggles, knew right from wrong. They argued that Andrea's actions were premeditated and deliberate. Pointing to her calm demeanor during the 911 call and her detailed confession, they claimed she was fully aware of the gravity of her actions. Prosecutors highlighted that she waited until her husband left for work, ensuring she had the time and opportunity to carry out her plan. This, they argued, was not the behavior of someone in the throes of psychosis, but of someone who understood the consequences and chose to act anyway. On the other hand, the defense presented a harrowing account of Andrea's battle with severe mental illness. They introduced expert testimony from psychiatrists who had examined her, detailing her long history of postpartum depression and psychosis. The defense argued that on the morning of June 20th, 2001, Andrea was legally insane, driven by delusions so overpowering that she believed she was saving her children from eternal damnation. They described her as a woman who had fallen through the cracks of the mental health system, failed by those who should have helped her. Key moments from the trial added layers of complexity to an already heart-wrenching case. Emotional testimonies from family members painted Andrea as a loving mother who had been overtaken by a force beyond her control. Expert witnesses debated the nuances of her mental state, each side presenting compelling arguments that left the courtroom in a state of tension. One particularly poignant moment came when the defense played a recording of Andrea, explaining her actions in her own words. The room was silent as everyone listened to her describe the overwhelming fear that had consumed her, the twisted logic that had led her to believe she was acting out of love. Tears were shed, and even the most stoic observers couldn't help but feel the weight of her anguish. As the trial progressed, the jury was faced with an almost impossible task: to decide whether Andrea Yates was a murderer or a victim of her own mind. The outcome would not only determine her fate, but also set a precedent for how the justice system handles cases involving severe mental illness. The trial of Andrea Yates forces us to confront difficult questions about the nature of justice and compassion. How do we hold individuals accountable while recognizing the impact of mental illness? And what can be done to ensure that those suffering receive the help they need before tragedy strikes? As the jury deliberated, the world waited, grappling with these questions and the broader implications of the case. The verdict would be a defining moment, not just for Andrea Yates, but for the ongoing conversation about mental health and the justice system. The courtroom drama surrounding Andrea Yates reached a fever pitch with the testimonies of expert witnesses. This battle of minds became a critical juncture in determining her fate. Each side brought forward psychiatrists and psychologists to dissect Andrea's mental state, creating a battlefield of conflicting evaluations and theories. The prosecution's star witness was Dr. Park Dietz, a renowned forensic psychiatrist. Dr. Dietz testified that Andrea was not psychotic at the time of the murders. He argued that her actions were too methodical and calculated to be the result of a psychotic break. His testimony was pivotal, suggesting that Andrea's mental illness did not absolve her of criminal responsibility. However, it was later revealed that Dr. Dietz had provided false testimony, claiming that an episode of the television show Law and Order depicted a woman who drowned her children and was acquitted by reason of insanity. This episode did not exist, and his false statement would later become a key factor in the reversal of Andrea's conviction. On the defense side, Dr. Philip Resnick, another prominent psychiatrist, painted a vastly different picture. Dr. Resnick testified that Andrea was suffering from severe postpartum psychosis at the time of the killings. He described her as delusional, driven by an overpowering belief that she was saving her children from eternal damnation. His testimony was bolstered by detailed accounts of Andrea's long-standing mental health issues and her repeated hospitalizations. The courtroom was a space of intense psychological warfare. Each expert's testimony added layers of complexity to an already convoluted case. Dr. Dietz's credibility was eventually called into question, and his false testimony became a focal point for the defense's appeal. The conflicting psychiatric evaluations left the jury with a monumental task: to sift through the expert opinions and determine the true state of Andrea's mind. In the end, the role of expert witnesses in the Andrea Yates case underscores the profound impact that psychological testimony can have in the courtroom. It also highlights the ethical responsibilities of those who hold such power. The false testimony of Dr. Yates not only influenced the initial verdict, but also led to a re-examination of the entire case, emphasizing the importance of accuracy and integrity in forensic psychiatry. As the legal battle waged on, it became clear that the intersection of mental illness and the justice system is fraught with challenges. The Andrea Yates case remains a poignant reminder of the complexities involved in adjudicating cases where severe mental illness is a factor. It calls into question how we, as a society, navigate the delicate balance between justice, compassion, and the understanding of mental health. The reverberations of this case continue to be felt, prompting ongoing discussions about the role of expert witnesses and the ethical standards that must be upheld in the pursuit of justice. The trial of Andrea Yates was a legal spectacle that gripped the nation. After weeks of intense testimony and emotional revelations, the jury reached a verdict that would send shockwaves through America. Andrea Yates was found guilty of capital murder and sentenced to life in prison. In a stunning turn of events, 3 years after Andrea Yates was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison, a critical error emerged that would change the course of her case. Dr. Park Dietz, a key expert witness for the prosecution, had testified that Yates had been influenced by an episode of the crime drama Law and Order, in which a woman drowned her children and was acquitted due to insanity. However, it was later discovered that no such episode existed. This revelation sent shockwaves through the legal community and provided the defense with a powerful argument. The erroneous testimony had been pivotal in swaying the jury's decision, and now it was clear that a grave mistake had been made. The Texas Court of Appeals overturned Andrea Yates's conviction in 2005, citing the false testimony as a significant factor in their decision. The stage was set for a retrial, and the nation once again braced itself for the emotional and legal battle that lay ahead. Would Andrea Yates be found guilty once more, or would the new trial reveal a different outcome? The world watched with bated breath as the case that had already captivated millions took yet another dramatic turn. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the retrial, the new evidence, and the ultimate fate of Andrea Yates. The retrial of Andrea Yates began in June 2006, drawing intense media scrutiny and reigniting national debates. This time, the defense was prepared to present a stronger case, focusing on Yates's long and well-documented history of severe mental illness. Expert witnesses testified to Yates's psychotic state at the time of the murders, emphasizing that she genuinely believed she was saving her children from eternal damnation. The prosecution, on the other hand, argued that despite her mental illness, Yates still knew her actions were wrong. They highlighted her methodical planning and the fact that she called 911 immediately after the killings as evidence of her awareness. As the trial progressed, the courtroom became a battleground of psychological and legal arguments, each side presenting compelling points. The jury was faced with the daunting task of determining whether Yates could be held criminally responsible for her actions, or if her mental state absolved her of guilt. After 3 days of deliberations, the jury reached a verdict. Andrea Yates was found not guilty by reason of insanity. The decision sent shockwaves throughout the nation. Some viewed it as a compassionate acknowledgement of Yates's severe mental illness, while others saw it as a failure of the justice system to hold her accountable for the tragic deaths of her children. The verdict sparked widespread debates over the legal definition of insanity and the treatment of mental illness within the criminal justice system. Advocates called for better mental health care and more nuanced legal standards, while critics argued that the decision set a dangerous precedent. In the end, Andrea Yates was committed to a high-security mental health facility where she would receive the treatment she so desperately needed. Her case remains a poignant reminder of the complexities of mental illness and the challenges it poses to the legal system. As we reflect on this tragic story, we are left to ponder the delicate balance between justice and compassion and the ways in which our society addresses the intersection of mental health and criminal responsibility. Since the jury's verdict in 2006, Andrea Yates has been living in a high-security mental health facility. Here, she receives ongoing treatment for her severe mental illness, including regular psychiatric care and medication management. The facility provides a structured environment designed to address her complex needs, offering a semblance of stability that was missing in her life before the tragic events. Andrea's days are filled with therapy sessions, medical evaluations, and limited interactions with others in the facility. Her life is now a stark contrast to the one she once knew, marked by the haunting memories of her past actions and the relentless pursuit of mental health recovery. The Yates case continues to serve as a critical reference point in discussions about mental illness and the law. It has illuminated the dire need for comprehensive mental health services and the necessity of understanding the profound impacts of psychiatric disorders. The case has also sparked debates on how the legal system should handle defendants with severe mental illnesses, challenging traditional notions of criminal responsibility and justice. Despite the passage of time, Andrea Yates remains a figure that evokes deep contemplation and empathy. Her story is a somber reminder of the thin line between madness and murder, and the importance of compassion in the face of incomprehensible tragedy. As society continues to grapple with these complex issues, the lessons from Andrea Yates's case remain ever relevant, urging us to seek a more just and humane approach to mental health and the law. In the end, Andrea Yates's life after the verdict is one of ongoing struggle and reflection. Her case has forever altered the landscape of mental health in the legal system, leaving an indelible mark on our collective conscience. The Andrea Yates case has left an indelible mark not just on the legal system, but on society as a whole. It has sparked critical conversations about postpartum psychosis, a severe mental health condition that many were previously unaware of. The tragic events inside the Yates home served as a wake-up call, highlighting the dire need for better mental health resources and the importance of early intervention for new mothers. In the criminal justice system, the Yates case has challenged traditional views on criminal responsibility. It has prompted legal reforms aimed at better accommodating defendants with severe mental illnesses, ensuring they receive appropriate treatment rather than simply being punished. The case has also led to increased training for law enforcement and legal professionals on recognizing and handling mental health issues. Public perceptions of motherhood and mental illness have also shifted. Andrea Yates's story has fostered greater empathy and understanding, urging society to look beyond the surface and recognize the complex struggles many mothers face. It has underscored the importance of providing comprehensive support for maternal mental health, from prenatal care to postpartum follow-ups. Medical awareness campaigns have been significantly influenced by the Yates case. Organizations now emphasize the importance of screening for postpartum depression and psychosis, aiming to prevent such tragedies by offering timely help and support. The case has also encouraged more open discussions about mental health, reducing the stigma that often surrounds these conditions. In conclusion, the legacy of the Andrea Yates case is multifaceted. It has reshaped legal practices, influenced public opinion, and spurred medical advancements. While the tragedy can never be undone, the lessons learned from it continue to drive positive change, fostering a more compassionate and informed society. The case remains a poignant reminder of the thin line between madness and murder, urging us all to strive for a more just and humane approach to mental health and the law. As we close this deep dive into the Andrea Yates case, we are left with more questions than answers. Was it murder, driven by an unthinkable darkness, or was it madness, an uncontrollable descent into the depths of mental illness? The lines between sanity and insanity blur, leaving us to grapple with our own perceptions of justice and morality. The case of Andrea Yates forces us to confront the uncomfortable reality that mental illness can lead to actions that defy comprehension. It challenges us to rethink our legal definitions of culpability and to question whether our justice system is equipped to handle such complex cases. Are we too quick to punish, too slow to understand? What can be done to prevent such tragedies in the future? How can we better support those struggling with severe mental health issues before they reach a breaking point? These are questions that linger, urging us to reflect on the adequacy of our mental health care systems, the effectiveness of our legal frameworks, and the depth of our empathy as a society. The Andrea Yates case is a haunting reminder that behind every headline, there are layers of human suffering and intricate psychological battles. It compels us to look beyond the surface, to seek deeper understanding, and to engage in meaningful dialogue about mental health, law, and moral responsibility. As we ponder these questions, let us remember that justice is not just about punishment, but about compassion, understanding, and the relentless pursuit of truth. The case of Andrea Yates leaves us with a crucial challenge to build a society that is not only just, but also humane, where mental illness is met with care, not condemnation. Thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope it has sparked not just curiosity, but a deeper conversation about the complexities of the human mind and the society we live in. Until next time, stay informed and stay compassionate.